you're asking the question, can nothing give rise to something?
Yeah.
And your answer is no.
Yeah, what is your answer?
In which case, I think an equivalent statement is something cannot come from
No,
nothing.
that's my answer. But I want.
No. I'm just.
I want to know your answer.
You're saying.
I want to know your answer, not mine.
Well, that depends on exactly what it is that you're saying. But are you saying that something cannot come from nothing?
What's your name?
Jacob.
I am Mansur, Jacob.
Biblical, by the way.
Jacob, I am Mansur. Pleasure speaking to you.
And you.
I want to know from your perspective and whether we need a paradigm shift. Remember what I said? Whether we need a paradigm shift.
My perspective is...
Yeah.
Yes. Because even if you believe in a God as the absolute core basis of truth that gives rise to everything, then you believe in a God that exists. And if that God exists, then that God is something. And that something must then come from nothing. And it's not my argument, it's a very common one. It's an argument of infinite regression. If the universe was given rise to by God, then where does God come from? Oh, God came from nothing, so nothing can give rise to something. So I think the difference between our perspectives is that you believe God is the truth, and as an atheist, I suppose I believe that what we see is the truth.
Okay, so you made several assumptive errors there, errors coming from assumption.
Okay.
We as Muslim or theists in general, we do not believe God came from something.
Okay.
Or from nothing.
You believe that God is?
I will tell you. So your assumption that God came from nothing, and then you answer that question, yes, nothing can make something, was mistaken already.
But why is that so? If you're allowed to make the assumption that God just is, and there was nothing previously,
look, remember,
why am I not allowed to make the assumption that the universe just is, and there was no nothing previously?
Firstly, I asked you a question: can something come from nothing? Mm-hmm. And you should justify that. That likewise, I should be able to justify my statement too. So I would like to ask you once again, from your own perspective, in your own critical, rational thinking. Mm-hmm. Can nothing make something? And the nothing that I have described already?
Yes. I think the way that you phrase the question, the answer can only be yes.
So how can nothing make something? Can you just show us some justification?
Oh, God, I absolutely no idea. But I don't think I've got any less of an idea than the theist who says that God just exists.
And remember, you now an atheist, if you are one, Jacob, you are on the defense to justify your position, not me.
Well, I'm on the defence because you repeatedly asked me.
I have made you into a defence, and I would like to hear a coherent, cogent, rational explanation, a justification of your statement that yes, something can come from nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, the argument is, as I believed previously, my position is no different from yours. If I try to say that everything that we see exists and just does, I don't think I'm making a very different argument from you, saying that God exists and just does. We both face the same issue. I'm trying to explain how the universe exists apropos of nothing, which I can't, and you're trying to explain how God exists apropos of nothing, which you can't. But I don't think we're too different on that page. I think regardless of whether you believe in a God or not, the reliance on the point of something has to come from somewhere, that doesn't solve either of our issues. I can't explain how this came from nowhere, and I don't think that you can explain how God came from nowhere.
Remember,
and as I say, it's a very old point.
Remember, Jacob, your failure to justify should not be imposed on me, as like I would right? So I want you, on your own merit, on your own critical thinking, justify the assertion that you've just made, or you can take it back and say, actually, no. I give you either options.
Let me answer it. So, whatever you would say about your belief for God existing,
you don't even know what I'm going to say.
I don't know.
So it's irrelevant.
I will copy and paste.
No, it's irrelevant. I would like to know, you as a critical thinking individual, I would like to hear some justification.
I've accepted that I can't, but the point that
But you made an assertion. You've made an assertion you're unable to justify. So you've made a faith-based claim.
I don't know whether you...
So you made a claim based on faith. So it's blind faith.
A claim based on faith?
Yeah, it's a blind faith, isn't it? You can't justify it.
No. I've made a claim of ignorance. I've made a claim that I don't know where all this comes from.
Yeah, you might be a flying spaghetti monster, right?
It might be.
That's what you're saying. And you don't even know. That's the difference between you and me as a theist, as a Muslim.
No. But the point that I'm attacking,
which you will see.
the argument of something must come from somewhere, I don't think solves your problem any more than it solves mine.
Brother, 1 second.
Out of curiosity, what's your religion? I can see you in the background, sort of nodding.
It's okay.
What are you? Okay,
yeah, fine. So they're happy for me to represent as the Muslims here, like all the brothers are saying. I'm sure my brother will be happy too. So you said you cannot justify it. If I said nothing doesn't even have the possibility of making something, and yet you make an assertion that it can make something, isn't that a contradiction in terms? Are you logical and reasonable?
I hope so.
Then if you are logical and reasonable, you should say a nothing that doesn't even have possibility of giving rise to anything, it cannot give rise to anything. That's reasonable assertion. That's being logical and rational.
So do you believe that there ever was nothing?
Now I'm telling you, nothing that I've described, that nothing, if it doesn't even have possibility of arising, making anything, then you cannot simply say, I am actually a rational human being, a reasonable human being, a logical human being, and then yet claim that it can make something.
We're talking about the transition from nothing to nothing to this.
I'm just telling you.
Do you believe that there ever was a nothing?
No. You're not answering the question. You're going into another question to put me now in justifying my position, which I will do. I've already stated my answer, but I will.
I hope that I've already answered your question.
No, you haven't. You haven't.
Well, I've said yes.
You have said yes, but we would like to know, as theists, your justification for it, and you say you have no justification. So now the question would be, are you being reasonable? Are you being reasonable?
I'll explain.
Are you a reasonable atheist?
My justification is it's because of the phraseology question. Sorry, I do. It's because of the way the question is phrased, right? I think you have to answer that question with yes. Can something arise from nothing? I think that question can only be answered yes. Because regardless of whether you believe in a God or not, we all seem to believe that all this started off as nothing. And in your worldview, there was nothing, then a God, then this. And in my worldview, there was nothing, and then this.
Let me just help you a little bit before you make several mistakes again. There was never a time when God was absent. So he wasn't nothing and then God. No. Just to help you out. So you keep asserting to then refute this position when this position is strawmanning incorrectly.
Sure.
So your position that something can come from nothing, while I define nothing doesn't even have possibility of giving rise to anything, is this a reasonable assertion to make?
Well, but so if you say there was never a point when God was absent, then you say there was never a nothing.
I'm talking about something and nothing. Remember, you're now on a defense to represent the atheistic community if you're an atheist.
I'm trying to answer the question.
Right. So
agnostic for the record.
Agnostic, fine. Jacob the agnostic. Okay. Mansur the Muslim.
Jacob the agnostic.
Yeah.
Rapper name if I ever decide to say that.
With no offense, by the way.
No.
Right. So, nothing I've defined to you, the 9th level of nothingness, which is even the absence of possibilities. That it doesn't even have a possibility of making anything. That means, if I were a rational human being, a critical, reasonable, logical human being, I would say, according to that definition, the answer has to be categorically no. Nothing cannot make something, because it doesn't even have a possibility of making anything.
Okay,
so when you made that assertion, were you being reasonable? Having heard the definition.
If you've not to be too contentious, if you study philosophical logic, right, you're saying that your answer to the question, can nothing give rise to something, is no.
Based on the definition of nothing.
Just the way I phrased that question.
No, based on the definition of nothing.
Sure.
The answer has to be no.
The answer has to
if
be
you
no.
don't say no and say yes, then we have to agree that you are being unreasonable.
That is logically equivalent. That is logically equivalent to saying that something must arise from something. Something must arise from nothing. Right?
Something must come from something.
Something must come from something. Your God exists.
No. Let's take.
No. Your God exists. That's an easy one.
Hang on. Jacob. Let's go back to nothing and something.
No, come on. Your God exists.
Always exists.
Your God is something.
Yeah, he always existed.
So where did your God come from?
Always existed. There's no question of coming from.
And then this is where I'm trying to build bridges. Your God always existed. My universe always existed.
Fine.
It doesn't need a
fine.
And
so,
your God
so let's now come to an understanding of a reasonable one. So your universe by definition of nothing that we explain, your universe has to have existed always. There could have been a time where it was absolutely nothing to begin with.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
So do you believe the universe existed always?
I believe that the conditions for the universe to arise existed always, yes. So I believe in a Big Bang. And then it comes down to what you consider to be a universe. But for the purposes of the question,
do you believe the universe existed 17 billion years ago?
Yes, but in some context.
In what context?
Okay, so
when did time begin?
About 17 billion years ago.
No.
Sorry, about 13.7 billion years ago. But to a quantum physicist, there was something prior to the Big Bang which existed, which allowed the conditions for the Big Bang to. But I don't understand this stuff well enough.
Okay.
But I'm saying, regardless, even if you
something existed.
Something existed.
Okay. So now we are on a common ground. Something has to always be in existence to explain us, our existence. You cannot have a time, in inverted quotes, in the past where there was absolute nothingness. Because from absolute nothingness, you will get absolute nothingness. There has to be always something. Either it's the universe or its conditions or whatever it was. Always something.
If by nothingness you mean like an absence of matter.
Absence of everything.
What? An absence of...
Everything.
So an absence of matter is different from an absence of laws of physics.
No, absence of everything includes laws of physics.
Then I'm not well educated enough to answer that question, is the honest answer.
No, the answer is, if there is such a thing called nothing, which doesn't have anything, not even laws and possibilities, then from that nothing, you will get nothing. Something cannot come from it. That is a reasonable, logical, rational position to take. And it is not rocket science, it's common sense. Because we've defined what nothing is.
Okay, I believe that if there is such thing as a universal set of laws of physics, they existed prior to the Big Bang. I think that's the best way I can answer your question. Yeah. I've also got somewhere to be in about an hour, but it was lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, if we had time...
If you had time... videos get a lot of views.
If we had time, Jacob, we would have shown you... We would have shown you how the position we have is justifiable, but of course you have to go. Okay, pleasure speaking to you. And if you ever come across again, we can continue this talk.
Sure.
Yeah, take care.